Joe, welcome back to Brown and the Judge.
Great to be with you guys.
Hey, Joe, what do you think so far of what we're about to see? And that is landmark legislation that's going to revolutionize our healthcare system.
Well, right now, I think there's a bunch of disappointment on all sides, and I think progressives are clearly disappointed that there's no public option or some other way to phase into to government a government option, and at the same time, there's all this spending, raising of taxes and spending. That the spending actually doesn't happen for quite some time, but the raising of the resources does. So I think there's a lot of stuff in here for people to pick apart. It's not quite clear yet how this is all going to play out. It's way too early to tell. It's got to go through conference, and it could come out with any number of different ways. So I think it is a triumph to have gotten this far. But it's a little bit too early to celebrate or condemn because we have no idea what this thing's going to look like before it's all done.
So, Joe, you're still putting your analyst hat on. Howard Dean, in particular, is taking a lot of heat about your former client, about what he said last week. He said the bill got a little bit better, but for the most part, stop this bill.
Well, that's exactly my point. I mean, in the end, when it passes, somebody's going to be very upset, and don't know yet whether it's going to be the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, led by my former boss Howard Dean, who is again leading progressive voice on this stuff. Is he able to push and shove? I don't. It doesn't look that way with Joe Lieberman, sort of having and others being able with one threat to pull their vote away takes Obama under 60, and they can't get anything passed. So, there are other progressives. I'm kind of one of them who would say, look, if you can get some things like pre-existing conditions and some other reform passed, to vote this thing down and not get those through, means another 10 years before there's any kind of reform on an insurance company refusing to insure a pre-existing condition. So, it's just one example. So, in the end, it's still kind of the question of how are we paying for this? What kind of bureaucracy does it create? And it's clearly creating problems in terms of the way the American people approve it. That's not there yet. We have no idea how popular or unpopular this thing is going to be.
Gotcha.
Going into 2010.
Yeah, you say we don't know what it's going to look like and whether it's going to be popular or unpopular in 2010. But one thing that people are really up in arms about is the whole abortion funding. Could that kill this bill?
Well, there's another one where Ben Nelson has worked out what he believed was a policy to let him vote for it. It gave states the option, an option on how to handle this issue. On the House side, Bart Stupak, who pro-life and believed he had very strong language to prevent any kind of funding of abortion. He says this language that Ben Nelson's worked out isn't agreeable to him, won't work.
Yep.
So we're going to have, again, that's what I'm saying. We don't really know what's going to come out of conference.
But Joe,
the Ben Nelson language or the Bart Stupak language. And I think people will be angry one way or the other. And it may anger pro-choice and pro-life activists by the end of the,
Joe, we've had Bob Shrum on who says it's not getting to conference. They're going to do something at a conference. Nancy Pelosi doesn't like to go into conference. So if
that could happen. I mean, Bob may know more than I know.
Yeah, but Joe, let me ask you in the big picture. Right now, Rasmussen reports that 26% support the president strongly, 43% strongly disapprove. Is he paying a political price for a landmark legislation that he didn't even write and might not even know what it contains?
Well, I mean, look, he's clearly paying a price for pushing this landmark legislation. He's said he was going to push through health care. He's doing reform. He's doing that, and he is clearly paying a political price for using political capital to do it. I think they're in there, fighting for, trying to get the language that they can get the votes to pass. I think they know what's in here. The question is, what do they have to give up or add to get to 60 votes and to get it passed, and to make something happen where the House and the Senate can pass a bill. I mean, when you're getting to the point where in Nebraska, the feds will take care of the any increase in Medicare payments for the state. That's a sweet deal for Nebraska. Again, they're doing what they think they need to do to get this thing passed. Well, it's a heroic effort to get it to a point where there's a vote. The problem with this legislation is it doesn't matter whether I love it or you love it. What matters is there's enough in it to have everybody on all sides. There's something in it that you'll hate, and that's just the way this it doesn't matter what they do, that's going to be the case. So they're going to have to pass it, and then the rest of us, we're going to, we'll be in that system. Whatever change is going to happen. It's got to be a long-term move to get people to understand what's in this thing that works for them. And that's going to be the challenge once it's passed, and that's a big challenge considering most of the benefits don't happen
for 4 years for some mysterious reason. For the taxes start right away.
Right. Again, that's the next hurdle once they get it passed. Is the fact that everybody will find something that's unpopular, and they won't fit any benefit that would make them feel better about it won't happen for several years. At the same time, tax increases and any funding will have.
And Joe, you're talking about sweet deals to some of the Republicans, but other people are calling them not sweet deals; they're calling them bribes.
Well, I mean, look, the reality is if you're going to pass any kind of legislation in this environment, and again, this has nothing to do with health care, you got to get Senator Nelson's vote. You have to get Joe Lieberman's vote. You have to get, particularly if the Republicans aren't going to play. In other words, if you can't get, one or two Republicans to cross the aisle, then you have to get to 60 votes. You have to give up something. That can be in the form of language on something like abortion funding. It can be that kind of a trade-off. It could be a trade-off in how Medicare payments are made.
Let me just share with you a story that you just touched on. There's widespread reports, and this was the indication, is that Speaker Pelosi will forego the conference negotiations and opt just to push the Senate bill. That will drive Bart Stupak maybe away from this bill.
Yeah, it's going to be easier to get the votes in the House than it is in the Senate. So it's been clear, I think, to most people who watched these things over the years that sooner or later, much closer to the Senate bill than the House bill, and that the conference would have to cave to the Senate to have any chance of passing things. This may be how the procedure works, but it's the same. The problem still is it's all in the Senate. You can't get there without 60 votes, and so if they have to give up Bart Stupak on the House side, they will. That's a lot easier for them to overcome than giving up Ben Nelson.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out. But now we're talking tactics, and I'm not sure.
Right.
I don't.
Joe, you're breaking up a little bit, but thanks so much. We're going to have you again, and I understand you're a Fox News contributor now, so it'll be a lot easier. Yes. Joe Trippi, thanks a lot. Welcome aboard.
Merry Christmas, movie house! Merry Christmas, Emporium!
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, you wonderful Billy and Lone!
From all of us at Brian and the Judge.